Bruchim habayim to the international virtual Siyum Rambam on Sefer Hafla'ah, beginning Sefer Zroim, the 6th and 7th Sefer of the Rambam. Oisen Simcha legam Rosh Teira, as the Rebbe always said, and B'frat when it comes to the Sefer of Rambam, where thousands of Yidden have been learning together the same prakim throughout the past 2 weeks and finished the Sefer. So as the Rebbe told us, that is a big reason to make a Hisvadus Shel Simcha when finishing a Sefer, and the Rebbe called it a B'sura Teva when he got the report that there was a Sefer that was completed and it was connected with the Hisvadus Shel Simcha. Today's Siyum was sponsored by Ili Nishmas, the Shliach to Milan, Italy, who passed away recently at Rav Chaim Mishimard Chalav Hashalom and Yibad L'chaim Tev and Rav Deber Sheikhia Sheikevitz, and all of the Limud HaTorah and the Hisayrus Limud HaTorah that will take place in today's Siyum should be the Ili Nishmase. And the Das Tachten, besides for, of course, fulfilling the Hira of the Rebbe when making a Siyum, when you get together and you create a Siyum for a Sefer and Rambam, what it does is it enhances the koch of every single individual's limud Rambam. And to that end, b'chlal, when we look to be misayder for a koch in certain types of limud, we look to the people who we know that are already heavily involved in koching in that type of limud. And so today what we're going to do is speak to two prominent members of Anash, Chassidim, who have a tremendous koch in limud Rambam, and talking with them and having them have the honor of making the Siyum and Haskalah on the Sefer. We will all, Be'ez Hashem, walk away with a renewed Hisayrus and a new Chayas to continue the Limud Rambam through the 7th Sefer and all through the rest of the journey until the Siyum very, very soon. So we'll begin with Rabbi Perlstein, menahel of Yeshivas Ohr Eliyahu in Chicago, with K'nai Nahara. I think by now it's thousands of alumni of Bachrim all over the world at this point. And Rabbi Perlstein, you're known as a person that has a tremendous koch in Rambam. You've written, I believe it's 5 Sfarim by now in Rambam, finishing soon the 6th. And as far as our platform on Rambam Resources, you are giving a halacha le'iyun shiur every week, every Friday. And in that spirit, we'll get right to the iyun of things. So when did your koch in Rambam begin for you?
Okay. I did not learn in Lubavitch Yeshivas as a child, as a boy. I learned matter of fact, I learned in Brisk in Eretz Yisrael, and my Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Yashaber, was part of, we know that Brisk Kochzach and Rambam, and every shiur come out they had something from Rambam, and in a consistent basis. The way he would do it is it would never come in, and this, I think, is part of what he was teaching us, is he never came in just to learn the Rambam. He would learn the Gemara, and he would take out the Rambam to see how he learns the Gemara. In other words, the Rambam was a source of understanding Gemara. Now, there is a uniqueness in the fact that over there they learn Kachim mostly, and there aren't too many Rishonim. The Rambam is probably the only Rishonim that's written there, but that's the koch. Now, like anything that you learn and in Torah, and you learn a lot, you learn it be'iyun, and you learn it over, you develop a geschmack in it. And did it for years, and afterwards I still continued looking and learning. And when you learn the Rambam the way we were taught there to learn it, which is literally as a meferish in the Gemara, which is not the traditional way of learning Rambam necessarily, but that helped a lot in developing a geschmack and a koch in Rambam. The first step, that is.
And I was talking reading in the Hakdamah to one of your Sfarim that you wrote. It says that you noticed a difference, or I don't know if it's a difference, or you compare the two drachim, the way that the brisket derech in Rambam, and then how you saw that Rebbe had a new level of being medayik, pashut in the words, every single word of the Rambam matter. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. First of all, the reason, another aspect of this that lends itself strongly to Rambam, and I want to lead that into to understand the Rebbe, what I see from the Rebbe, not to understand the Rebbe, is that in Bris there's a line that they always say. They're not interested in Havos, steht, and Avos steht. I don't want to, not interested in what the logic behind it, but what does it say? And it's part of the derech. That's why there's a lot of dinim, and they love. I mean, I learn in yeshiva here the mesechtas in yeshivas are much harder for that derech halimut because there is more logic, but it does lend itself. You always find how. But that's so Rambam is incredible because the diuk of Vashtet Rambam is incredible. Every word is gemust and then it's measured and you can really be medayik. However, the diuk there is in the words of the Rambam and then very sensitive. You have to read a Rambam and be sensitive to it. And what is he saying? What's not? The Rebbe opened up a whole new avenue of looking at the Rambam. The first thing is, and just a thing that we as Hasidim have to realize, is that there's always been a debate as to the Rambam's knowledge of Pnimius HaTorah. And there's no question that the Rebbe very often connects the Rambam Nigla and the Pnimius, and now we can see Pnimius HaTorah in the Rambam. But it's based on, because the Rambam is to the Rebbe, the Rambam is a sefer just like any, like the holiness of the Rambam is not questionable. Every word is Ruach HaKodesh, and every word has in it Ayin Panim LaTorah, and every word can be on the scene in that sense. So even, the Rebbe says at one place, even the Mechaber himself may have not thought about this, but through his Ruach HaKodesh, that's there. So you look at the Rambam with a whole different cook. That's the first thing. And second of all, the Rebbe added the idea of proximity, what halacha is near it or around it. Third, the Rebbe added the order of things, how things are ordered. Sai in the halacha, sai in the Seder, which halachas he writes it, and which chelik of the halachas he writes it. The Rebbe would be medayik if a halacha appears twice in somewhere. There has to be, it's not just, of course you can find, there has to be a taken difference between them. And in the same halacha, sometimes when there's twice, the Rebbe will always show what each thing is. So another thing that the Rebbe stressed over and over, that the Rambam is a sefer halachas. Being that it's a sefer halachas, if he writes something that doesn't seem to fit to the halacha part, it has to be figured out how it does fit to the halacha part and what it does do. These are all new avenues that I don't find in history that people have addressed the Rambam in that manner till the Rebbe comes along and changes that. And
right. So it's not just Wasser state, it's Wifel Maler state and Vuh state and then state.
Vuh state, and then there's one more point which the Rebbe does so strongly with comparing the Rambam to the Alter Rebbe in Shulchan Aruch, which is a phenomenal thing. And last year we learned Psachim, 2 years ago we learned Psachim, and obviously the Rebbe Shulchan Aruch played a prominent role in the learning, and you watch how the Alter Rebbe brings something, how the Rambam brings something. It's just fascinating. And not only that, you see the difference. I was telling the Bacham all the time that the Rambam, you have to figure out what he doesn't say very often. And the Alter Rebbe, you have to figure out what he does say. He says a lot, and in what he's saying, every word is teaching you something, is giving out something. It's like, but the Rebbe was medayik and certain things to see how they approached it differently from each other. It's just a whole avenue, a whole area of learning that's phenomenal.
Got it. Thank you. Wow, that's Geschmack Hagdara. And as I mentioned before, our platform, you give us Shiur Halacha L'Iyun every Friday. Can you talk a little bit about what goes into that? And also, how have you found this experience of having to prepare this kind of shiur every week?
Okay, so the second, I'll answer, even though I should be Al Rishon, I'll answer Al Achron Rishon. It's not easy simply because of Baruch Hashem, I do have other things to do. So I give a shiur here in Yeshiva to the Shluchim twice a week, which takes a lot of my time in preparing and putting and setting it up. And I don't have the break the cup that I can work on two things at the same time. There are people who do that. I'm not. So it takes me a lot of work. Also at my age, it's not so easy to do that. In addition to that, I do. So I have to find time. I have to steal time where I can forget about everything else and all my other achrayos and that the Rebbe is given and the Abish is given, and I have to focus on that. So I try to find the time. Generally, what I do is like a week and a half before the shiur, I go to the halachas that Baruch Hashem, thanks to Chabad.org, you can just click on the date and see what program I'm going to. The other ones I made a mistake. I clicked on the wrong date and I gave a shiur on the day earlier. But they generally see what's doing. So I quickly skim through the halachas, and I see if there's any halacha in those three prakim that jumps out of the page on me, like, there's something being said there. Or I'm familiar with the halacha, which would make it easier also to work with. But very often it's some words in the Rambam that just jump out of the page. I will make a copy of that and put it into a file. And from there, when I have the time, I will start looking into the Mefarshim and see what people speak about it. And from there, it's whatever develops, Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. I'll be the first to tell you what I don't agree with.
I'm an avid listener of them. I enjoy them very much. And we also said before that Yutaka menahel, you mentioned it also, the yeshiva. And kamuvan, that most of us, the experience of learning Rambam began as Bachrim. When you come into yeshiva, you're all excited to take on the new takana of Rambam. And you've seen Bachrim through the years, many Bachrim. What would you say is the proper approach to starting a Seder Mesuder Limud Rambam?
Okay, for that, I have spoken to Mashpia also about it, because I don't like to rely on my own opinion on things like that. The truth of the matter is, the shaila is, what is the purpose of learning Rambam? There are those who stress this kashrus aspect, which is zichur. There's no shaila about that. But the shaila is, what does the Rebbe want in order to be mekushatim? So again, I'm not chas v'shalom taking away from what others say. I just believe that it's clear from the Rebbe's zinyanim that he wants you to learn Rambam and to get the idea, the yeda from Kol HaTorah Kula from Rambam. That's what he wants, to learn Kol HaTorah Kula. It's not another Shiur Tilim. It's a Shiur Limud HaTorah, and it's a serious Shiur Limud HaTorah. Now, obviously not the Iyun. There is one malach b'iyun a day, but there's an inyan of knowing what you learn. So, therefore, to go take a bachel who's not shaykh to learn three prakim, knowing what it's saying, and because there is the seam from the Rebbe that three prakim was more important than one perik, and there's definitely mashmois like that. I mean, the feeling is that that's not what we should push a bacher to. A bacher should learn one perik until he is able to do more. If he's able to do more, avada daf mezen to encourage him. But if you're going to force him to do it, it's not an issue. So it really depends on the bacher's kishrenis, his ability to learn three prakim. Now, again, when I say it could be he's not going to do it perfectly, but if he's shaykh to it, he should try to do it. That's the Rebbe's inyan. But there's no tachlis in reading three prakim, at least in the opinion that I had, and I confirmed that opinion with other Mashpia in Yeshiva, with Mashpia in Yeshiva, not other. Who believe so too.
Got it. Thank you for giving us this window into what goes on behind the scenes for you and B'chalal. The Inyanim Rambam, I want to honor you to make the Siyum on Sefer Hafla'ah.
Okay. So first of all, I have to give a shout out to Rabbi Yusewitz. This morning, I came into my office. I come very early in the morning to my office, and I said, let me hear how somebody else is going to learn the last halach in Rambam. So I listened to him, and he does a beautiful job. So whoever wants to learn three prakim Rambam, I only listened to that halach. I didn't listen to everything else. Time for that, but really, really nice how he learns halach and Rambam. So the last halach and Rambam of Hilchos Erech and Charam Perik Ches halach Yud Gimel, the Rambam says, "Elam layagdish adam v'layachrim kol mechasim." Person should not make hegdish as all of his mechasim. And the next line is, again, here is a line that jumped out on the Sefer for me. And if I would have had to give a share on this, I would have given him, this would definitely be somewhere I would look. So, Baruch Davis to help that I always tell the Baruch that during the week I have Shas at my fingertips. I have the Barilan, and I can find anything I want immediately. The Shabbos, I said, that I'm a Oretz, I don't have it. But I quickly did a search because I don't remember seeing that line. It does not exist in Rambam, the words al das hakosuv. This is the only time, which I don't know the reason. I just, with something that definitely needs to be pursued why he says it. But let's go weiter. I mean, mikol ashaloi, v'loi kol ashaloi. Mikol ashaloi, you should give from and not everything. As the Chacham explained. The chasidus el shtus. It's not chasidus shtus. I just want to make a point that we realize from here that chasidus and shtus border each other. And we should realize that it's very easy to go from one over to the other. Because he's not saying if Eizu mitzvah, you think it made it, no, it's shtus. which is also interesting that you're going to lose everything in Starech Labrius. Why you have to say Ma'av Kol Money? It's obvious you give away more money. As the Gemara says, they destroy the world. Don't give more than a chaimish. Now, in other places, the Rambam writes clearly you should give a chaimish as a mitzvah. Here it would sound like that's your limit. And there he says that it's the mitzvah to give. Okay, so that's a discussion for itself. You should do you should do the way the Nevi'im told us, which we say in Tillim. He organizes his things according to Mishpat. You know what I say, the it should be like that all over. Now here he goes an interesting Kal V'Chaim, which again, if we would want to go on Be'iyun, it's not an easy Kal V'Chaim. The Torah is on a Jew's money. You should give what you can afford. So you should only do according to what is fitting. Now the Shenamar, I guess, is an afterthought. After I have a Kal V'Chaim, there's a pasuk. Now the Gemara asks very often, Lamali, if there's a pasuk, what if there's a Kal V'Chaim, Lamali Krog? Here's both ways. Anyway, that's the end of Slikal Hilchas Erchem B'Charam B'Siyat Yisrael. And Sefer Hafla'ah, Minyan Parakav, Shleish Abam Parakim, Hilchas Shvuah, Shnei Masa Parakim, Hilchas Darim, Shleish Asa Parakim, Hilchas Hasar Parakim, Hilchas Erchem B'Charamim is Shmeina Parakim. Shekeach und Beis helfen, haben so Messiah sein Geschenk mit Siyum Sefer Hafla'ah, we should Messiah all the storm and weiter.
Amen. Shekeach Rabbi Perlstein, Maskifen Haschala LaHashlama. If we could bring on the screen Rabbi Yusewitz to right away begin Sefer Zroim.
Okay. Zok the Rambam, B'Shem Hashem Ke'Elohim, in the name of the Eibishter. Ti Yadchol Azreini, may your hand be to help me keep Kodecha B'Charti, because I chose to follow the Eibishter's commandments. Who's Sefer Shvivu, Sefer Zroim, Sefer discussing things that grow from the ground and the halachas pertaining. Hilchos of Sheva, B'Zel Siduram, Hilchos Kilayim, Hilchos Matnasanim, Hilchos Trumis, Hilchos Meiser Sheni, Hilchos V'Net Revai, Hilchos Bikurim, Ushar Matnas Kuna Shebegvulin, and Hilchos Shmita V'Yovel. Hilchos Kilayim Yesh B'Chlal Chamish Mitzvahs Leisas. There are 5 negative mitzvahs. The Zel Prat, the details are Shalot Yisrael Zraim Kilayim, seeds of Kilayim, Shalot Yisrael Tvua, grain, or Yarok, or vegetation, Bakerem, in a vineyard. Shalot Arbia Behema Kilayim, bring behemoths together of different species. Shalot Lasis Malacha Bekila Behema Kecha, to have working even 2 behemoths together. Shalot Lilbash Kilayim, which by us would be called Shatnez. The first parak halacha aleph has a reya shnei min Yisrael, one that plants 2 types of seeds. Ke'echad be'eretz Yisrael, together in Eretz Yisrael. Loike gets malchus and nemasatcha loy sees rakilayim. It's a clear loisase. Ve'echad as a reya, whether it's someone that planted ayamenakish or is taking away weeds or stones which disturb the growing. Ayamachape covers it with ground. Going choice achita achas or soir achas, whether it was one grain. One seed of wheat, or soirachas, one of barley, a pool, one lentil, one bean, and he covered it with ground, whether it's with his hand, with his foot, whether with a shovel, etc. Gets malchus. Whether it's in the ground directly, or it's nakov in a flower pot that has a hole. It's if it's in a flower pot that does not have a hole. It's only Aser the Rabbanon. Rabbi Perlstein said, may we be zeicha to continue and open and the Messiah and begin many more Svarim of Rambam and the Rebbe Shav Nachas. Yeah.
Amen. So we had an unpaid advertisement before from Rabbi Perlstein about your Shiur Taka, that it's a fast-paced Shiur. It covers everything in just about 45 minutes. And maybe we'll get some fast-paced answers. Who knows? Anyways, can move on that this year to get to Shiur and cover all 3 prakim every single day in that kind of level. It's a skill, but it's also there's experience there. So, how many times have you been through the whole Sefer Rambam already?
Okay, so I think it'll be a mitzvah for me to say the truth. And first of all, I want to say that I also benefit tremendously from Rabbi Perlstein's Shiur, because when you're going through 3 prakim and you're preparing 3 prakim, so the objective is obviously to understand it. And even Mekairis that I do go through many times is that's not what I'm going to be sharing. And when you have to, 3 prakim is a lot to cover. So I don't have a chance to do the Mishnah, the Halacha Le'iyun, if not for the Vada Shluchim's tremendous program, and Rabbi Perlstein. Sometimes I watch the recording of the Halacha Le'iyun, etc. So I'll say the emes. The emes is, and it's zwischen unsere. I was mamish mekanes Rabbi Perlstein and Rabbi Resnick when he mentioned that in yeshiva he went through. There's in yeshivas there. It's hard to say it, but there's some bachram that there's takanas Rambam and gzeres hamashka, right? So I was from the bachram that it was takanas hamashka, but it was gzeres Rambam, and I began many times. But if it's not a limud, a kavudik limud that I don't understand, like Rabbi Perlstein said, it was very, very hard to hold on to. So I started many times, and I got through tremendous amounts, and I also learned Rambam Le'iyun, and I have the Hadras covered for Rambam Habach, but the key and critical component for me to be Matzliach was a Chevrusa, Pashat Tesera Chevrusa. And I mean, now it's even more than just a Chevrusa. Now I have to get up earlier to make sure that I have enough time to go through it, and so Zayin Klan and Dreitlach. But I decided to try to give that gift to anyone that I know there's tremendous amount of shluchim and chassidim that don't have a chevrusa, and it's very hard if someone's not moving you. And chevrusa has its own downside with the dabat, but it al kapanim, it keeps you nailed. So that's right. The goal of my shiur is not so much a shiur as much as being a chevrusa for everyone, whoever wants. And if you want to take a pause for the dabat, or you want to shut me off, it's the simplest thing. But it's there to help people that want to understand Pshat. They learned in yeshivas, they can Lashon HaKodesh, they understand Inyan, and they need to just move together with someone. So that's what I'm here to do.
And what taka inspired you to make that commitment to take it on?
So I'll say again, Damis, I have a shtickle like I run a kehillah in Crown Heights called Anshe Moshe, Al Shem Arzeder, Moshe Rubin, and Chassidish young alike come together, we mechazik each other. And now we're doing construction, and like construction goes, it gets stuck. And my wife wrote a letter. She took to the oil, and then she opened it was kodesh, and the Rebbe said, "Zol mein geben shiur." So I said, whoever asks me this coming week, I'm gonna take on. 3 people came to ask for kavod the shiurim, and that was I would a tremendous shout out to Rabbi Abram Rotban, a person that mamish hikim ulo shel Rambam over here in Crown Heights and across the globe. Pashat was miyasid this master like mavil, like 11, 12 shiurim. There should be in every shul. Mamish the Rebbe's ratzin, and much of it is available to the public online and podcasts, and it is really, really unbelievable. Now he just started, like you were discussing earlier, how Bachrim start Shleisha Brakim. So he was miyasid just now for Perek Echad, for 8th graders if they want to learn with the shiur and taka understand. And it's niskav l'schusa together with one man, if I could give a plug-in for a Rabbi Mechayev Ashirin. It's a younger man, his name is Shlomi Greenwald, that Pashat Ayid that is sponsoring tremendous amount. He opened the koil in Limud Torah, but he is Pashat on my back. Abuz the shiur, it has to be available. And it's niskav l'schusa. He was took tremendous chesed, and he's busy more than many people, and he's mechayev us. Yeah. So that's how it started. That was the commitment, and that's what keeps it going. And it's here every day.
And
yeah, sorry.
Right. And taka Gabi the daily shiur. So what kind of Rambams do you use to prepare? And if I could ask, which one you find it's your favorite?
So honestly, the Rebbe uses the traditional Rambam and Rambam La'am, but it's sometimes very, very long and not. So I sometimes use the Iker for Agdamas, and I think a plug-in this Rambam, the Makbili Rambam, the Nusach is not in Ganzen. I understand you're familiar. This is the Nusach of Rabbi Kapach, and the Rebbe holds it shouldn't in Ganzen be used. Halacha definitely not, because this is not the Girsa that was in front of the Rishonim, not in front of the Beis Yosef, not the Noisa Kalim when they were paskening halachas. Even if it was even assuming that this is a later Girsa, which is also debatable because the Rambam was ständig Magia, but their beer is really, really very, very helpful. And also the Akdamas. The Akdamas, I think some people just to jump into a new Indian, it's hard. And I'm saying for your average younger man that's limited Torah, this is his Perek Echad Shachris and Arvis, and he's learning Rambam. So to get into a new Indian mitzad echad, it's very colorful. It just goes Indian Indian. But to get involved, it's useful.
Right. Geschmack. And how Taka does the daily share work? Are you giving it to people that are live so they can't? Could they ask questions in the middle? Are you recording yourself while you give the share?
It's a real good question. And B'teva Advarim, I'm involved in chinuch, so it's hard to refuse questions and to put everyone on hold or on mute. And L'mais, it's a shiur that happens live in 770, like a minyan, a little more, a little less sometimes, and that we learn Rambam together. So it's a commitment, and I know people on that join on the podcast or on WhatsApp, so they have the white noise of 770. They have the shul bachram sitting and learning, which is also good, but it could disturb. But so in terms of questions, I try to really limit it. And sometimes I do take, and I think everybody, I mean, we try.
Everybody joins the conversation.
Talking to live people is not like talking to plastic, yeah.
Yeah, and then I was going to ask you also if there's something you would recommend to people that struggle, but you already mentioned the idea of chavrus. I think it's mamish, very chashuv. And could there's anything else that you would say if someone struggles with keeping momentum?
So I think the emes is Shloisha Prakim should have less of an issue in terms of interest, because it's always a new Indian. I'm saying it's 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, and then you finish. So, but definitely just giving time sometimes to browse around before you start a sugya. Before you start, now we're starting Hilchas, as we just started, Hilchas Kilayim. Kilei Behemo, Kilei Zra'im, Kilei Gadim, to notice the inyanim in wherever, whichever sefer you use, but that interest, the keen interest is critical to if a person, they say a real nisayin is lech lecha. When you don't tell a person what he's getting into, and again, the Lord Tashareka, that's a real nisayin. When you open halacha, you know, like a person knows it's going to be discussing if it's an interesting concept, and the next one, it's not just the X amount of prakim of Hilchas Kilayim. There's different types and different discussions. So even if you didn't get one detail over here, I think just browsing l'chatchila, doing a search, looking in this sefer, Rabbi Stein, Rabbi Evan Yisrael, Shalom. I understand his Rambam is very good. Just in like little hakdamas, taking interest just helps you pull, and a chavrusa is to get it done.
Yeah, there it is. Rabbi Yusewitz for what you've given us today. And both Rabbi Yusewitz and Rabbi Perlstein, amongst many other resources, are featured every day on the Rambam Resources website, www.rambam.today. But it also goes out through WhatsApp, and anybody that wants through the website could sign up, pass it on to your friends, and so that we get much more Yidden involved in Be'ez Hashem. There's some new exciting things that are being planned to take it to the next level in the Yom and the Shavuos HaKrevim. So, like last time, we're going to have a short trivia question challenge. B'negea to Inyani Rambam, Sai historically, Sai the actual Sefer, Sai some things connected to the Rebbe on Rambam. And as we mentioned last time, that there is going to be a raffle for someone to win a set of Rambam of their choice. Last time it was Rabbi Yosef Volvovsky, and now the trivia game will go up, and we'll see who will be Zeicha this time. I want to say a big thank you to everybody for coming on. And Taka U'Mala, it's Deus Hashem, Kamayim Layom L'Chasim.